All right, the numbers are in. Gross domestic product for Nigeria, 3.52% in real terms in the fourth quarter. You can see the comparison then with the third quarter of 2022, 2.25%. And year on year versus the third quarter, or rather the fourth in 2021, 3.98. And well, we're about to jump into it. Non-oil sector, oil, manufacturing, different sectors. We are incredibly happy to have the head of Africa coverage at the EurAsia Group, Amaka Anku. Amaka, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good to finally have you with us. All right, let's see how much we can get to. I know you're here to observe the elections, right?
Yes.
Oh boy, great stuff. I guess let's talk about is this impressive growth? Is above population growth? What do you make of the 3.5? I think year on year is 3.01. But what do you make of the growth?
It's not. I wouldn't call it impressive.
Okay.
It's encouraging, right? It's higher than the last quarter. The latest quarter was higher than the quarter before it.
Yeah.
Still not where Nigeria needs to be, right? But the trend is positive.
Yeah. Oil sector, and we've seen a drop as far as the oil sector is concerned in terms of the contraction, 13.8%. What needs to happen in order to get Nigeria's oil sector to start performing? I mean, look at that. The contribution to GDP is 4.3%. And that number should be 13.38, not 3.38. So just for our viewers, no, that's 13.38 contraction. But anyway, the oil sector, what do you make of the struggles there?
Not surprising.
Yeah.
Look, the oil sector has had decades of underinvestment,
Yeah.
right? I know we are talking a lot about theft these days, but the problem is not just theft. We've always had theft in Nigerian oil sector, right? The problem is that after so many years of not investing in well maintenance, well replacements, a lot of IOCs have not made those investments for various reasons, including theft, but also because a lot of the joint ventures are old, they're underperforming. They prefer to move to the deep offshore. So it's not surprising. I don't really, and nobody expects, I think, in this day and age, for the oil sector to drive growth in Nigeria going forward. And it hasn't driven growth for two decades, right?
But
it should come back. So I think my best case scenario for Nigeria's oil production is probably 1.6.
Really?
This year, yeah. I don't think we're getting back to it's unrealistic to think you're getting back to 2.6 and all this ridiculous numbers.
You're tempting me to jump into one of the manifestos of one of the, I won't say who, but one of them says he's going to get oil production to 4 million
it's ridiculous.
barrels per day. You don't see that?
No.
All right, what about
certainly not for export. Like, I think in the long term, once Dangote's refinery is up and running, there could be a market for more domestic production to feed the domestic refinery.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a long-term prospect.
Right.
That's not happening in the next 2 years.
There's some people who think the refineries are just going to pop up
that's not
tomorrow.
happening in the next 2 years. Even if it pops up this year, right? It will take a while for the indigenous companies to buy some of the fields that IOCs don't want to develop anymore, and then invest in it and start producing more. It's a long-term prospect to get oil production up, right, from domestic indigenous producers.
Now, non-oil sector, that seems to be what's been driving the Nigerian economy. It grew by 4.4% or so, and it's contributing like 95% to the economy. Yeah. Can this be maintained? Can we, since we're not very bullish on the oil sector, is it all about non-oil growth? Is that where we need to go?
It has to be maintained, right? Look, over the past 2 decades, the oil sector has only declined, right? And so it's time for Nigeria, in my view, it's time for Nigeria to embrace the reality that it is effectively becoming post-oil.
Okay.
Right? Oil is a small part of your economic activity. Yeah. Oil is increasingly becoming a small part of your revenue.
Yeah.
The only place where oil is still, say, overly relevant is in foreign exchange earnings.
There you go.
Okay?
You're right.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
That needs to change over time. So that still makes the oil sector relevant and important because you still need foreign exchange to fund the rest of your economy, to fund your imports.
And so on and so forth.
But non-oil is precisely what we need to focus on, the non-oil sector. And I do think we don't have any choice anymore.
Right.
It will grow.
Well, I mean, look, I want to give you an example of something in terms of the quality of finished goods, and still on the non-oil sector.
Yeah.
When you go to Switzerland, people say bring back Swiss chocolates, right? If you go to the UK or something, but nobody says that when you go to Ghana or the Ivory Coast or Nigeria. So my thing is, we're exporting.
Says what? Bring back
Nigerian chocolates, or bring back Ghanaian chocolates, right? Because you're exporting cocoa and the raw materials. For non-oil, how do you go from raw materials to finished goods? That's how do we get into the multi-billion-dollar is it power? Is it,
it's all of that. We need to get stable electricity.
Yeah.
You can't have serious manufacturing without stable electricity.
Yeah.
You can't have, in most countries, most jobs are created by small businesses. Right? So you have to create an enabling environment. That means stable electricity. That means roads and infrastructure. So, all these rails that we're doing, it's important. We need to manage it better, but it's a step in the right direction. Do the rail, connect rural communities to markets, right? So that people who are growing, even if it's on a small scale initially, you can get it to markets efficiently.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start with creating the infrastructure and then also fixing the regulatory environment, right? And making it easier and creating incentives to stimulate productivity.
Yeah. I want to take a look at some sectors with you as far as the top 10 performers that contributed to GDP growth. Top of the line was crop production, right? And so, I think the four subsectors, it's crops, forestry, livestock, and fish. So this is the contributions, 56% services. But if we take a look at the top 10, what do you make of, it's 24%, but...
But it's a small part of GDP.
Right, exactly.
I think trade is a bigger part of GDP.
Yeah.
Telecoms.
Yeah.
Telecoms is probably the big. I'm not sure what the other ones are, but I know telecoms is almost 15% of GDP.
Right.
So that's been a big driver of growth.
So that's where we should focus.
And I think that I think there's a lot more that could be done there. I haven't followed as closely the Nigeria Startup Act, but there seems to be one of the things that the industry seems happy about.
Well, let me tell you what's happening with the Startup Act. Nothing's moved forward. We had Inya Boyeji about a week or two ago, who was one of the players in the sector that pushed it forward. He came on saying that nothing's happened since the president signed it.
Right.
So
not surprising, because we have an election in 2
days.
There
you go. Yeah.
But it's been signed, and they're happy with it. So the next step will be to implement.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So take baby steps.
Speaking of baby steps, I know we'll get to the election in just a sec, but should we be moving faster? Should those baby steps be? The Flash movie is coming out this year.
Yeah. It's a good question. I wish we could be moving faster, but the reality is, everywhere in the world, reform happens slowly.
Yeah.
And it's difficult.
Right.
And sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Right.
But the important is that you are going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right? So I do think that we've gotten to a point in Nigeria where we do need to move faster. Right. Given what population growth is expected to be, kind of have to speed it up. We're running out of time.
Should the ruling party be happy with these numbers? It's just coming out 2 days before the election. You're doing 3.5%. You're growing at 3% a year.
I don't know. I don't think that anybody cares about these GDP numbers in this environment.
Is that sad?
They shouldn't even waste their time on it. Nobody cares about it. It doesn't change anybody's life.
Right. Okay. So you see, and we talked about this on the morning show in the morning. There's this saying: can people eat GDP? Right. So. Even if you look at the first 15 years or so of Nigeria's democracy, we were growing 7%, 9%. Yeah.
But people were getting poorer because a lot of what drives GDP growth sometimes is transactions in the economy. If you're stealing money and building luxury homes and selling it to each other, that will be growth, even though you're not producing anything. So I think GDP growth, it's an important metric, but it's not the most relevant metric.
Well, that's very honest. Well, hey, look, that's why we have you on. Have you seen the movie The Day After Tomorrow?
No, I haven't.
You have not? Because the elections are the day after tomorrow. I don't know if we have the clip, but it's a Roland Emmerich movie.
Okay.
There it is. A disaster film where this big blizzard hits New York and the rest of the world, and everybody's walking through a bunch of snow. Is that too dark? As far as what do you guys at EurAsia Group?
That's too dark.
It's too dark?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your outlook for what we expect? On the elections.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I think people love to be doomsday on Nigeria, and Nigeria has proven to be resilient, right? Over several elections.
Yeah.
This is, one of the things that is great about this election is I think the confidence in the process is the highest it's ever been, right? And so I think we will have overall, I hope we'll have a smooth process.
Yeah.
The key watch point is, does the BVAS work?
Yes.
The biometric verification units, does it work? Is it deployed in most places?
Right.
And does it mostly work, right? Like there's gonna be some malfunctioning. Is it replaced when it malfunctions? If that happens, I think we'll be fine. Right?
Okay, well, the head of INEC, one of the information chair, he keeps saying it's gonna work, and so he's very optimistic about it. What does a post-election Nigeria look like, depending on how fast the new administration, whoever that is, hits the ground running? What do you think that looks like?
I do think, look, I'll say this. I do think, and I know there's a lot of negativity about this in the international community, but I do think that the fact that we have all three candidates promising to remove subsidies.
There we go.
Is a big deal for Nigeria. That's never happened.
Okay.
Like, removing subsidies was never the popular thing that you ran on.
Right.
And everybody's like trying to overdo themselves to promise that they're going to remove it.
Yeah.
And I think it reflects the different environment that we're in Nigeria today, where most people are paying way more for petroleum than the control price. So you're not going to see this idea that we had before, that if you remove subsidies, it's going to like accelerate prices and people are going to suffer. Like the people who are benefiting from subsidies are people like me and you who drive cars, right? So I do think that's one thing that I am looking to see happen fairly quickly.
So you think they'll do it?
Yes.
You're confident they'll do it. So some people are skeptical that
I know
they'll
people
do it.
are skeptical. I would say my confidence level is increasing.
To yank the whole thing or do it in gradual phases?
Whether it's gradual or not, it needs to be done within the first 12 months.
Oh boy. Well, you know what? Okay.
Debt. You have to yank off the Band-Aid.
Yank off the Band-Aid. How much things? Our debt issues. What was it in September? 44 trillion. You still got another 22 trillion in terms of CBN, the ways and means. Do you think Nigeria is going to be on her way to the IMF, like Ghana and Tunisia and Kenya and Egypt and Sri Lanka and everybody else, if we don't get this debt situation sorted out?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
I think the first step, if Nigeria removes the subsidies, and if the next administration makes a serious and concerted effort to collect taxes.
Does that mean raising taxes or
no?
Just collecting?
Collect. Nigeria doesn't do the bare minimum. Let's be honest. And I know Nigerians don't like to hear this.
They don't.
I just wrote a piece in Foreign Affairs about this.
Yeah.
We don't pay taxes. And I know people, there are lots of fees and there's lots of licensing and there's all this stuff that gets muddled as taxes. And then we have to provide our own electricity and we have to provide our own roads.
Yeah.
That's all fair. There's a lot of burdens on Nigerians. But we have to understand that the contract we have now with the Nigerian state is we don't pay you taxes and you don't provide us services.
Gotcha.
So we shouldn't be upset that you're not providing us services. So we need to flip it.
Right.
We pay you taxes.
And then you do your job.
And we force you to provide services too. Right. And then if you're not providing services,
then we hit the streets.
You get out, right?
Final question for you. I guess outlook. Optimistic, pessimistic, somewhere in the middle. Where are you as far as
Nigeria?
Yeah.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah?
Like I said, I think Nigeria has hit the perfect storm.
Right.
There's lots of things that have come together to make it clear that the path that we are on is not sustainable.
Gotcha.
Right? Yeah. Like I said, how can you be an oil country where you don't have oil revenue?
Right. You got oil.
Oil is a tiny part of your economic activity. How are you an oil economy? Like the only one thing that your oil is giving you is foreign exchange, and even that
is not even
that for the last year we haven't. So are we still an oil economy? No. Right. So we need to understand that we're not an oil economy, and we actually need to do the hard things to make the non-oil sector deliver and export from it, and so on and so forth. So I think we've gotten to that point where there's a broader understanding of it, including in the political class, which is important.
Amaka Anku, you're head of Africa coverage, EurAsia Group. Good luck covering the elections. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.